everyone, welcome back to Hair of the Werewolf. I'm Lily, and I'm here with Chase.
What's up, guys?
And we are a horror paranormal podcast that likes telling each other true scary stories from all over the world. And of course, while we're doing this, we like to have a little bit of a drink sometimes.
Well, and you are definitely having a little bit of drink because you got one of your baby drinks.
Yeah.
Oh, not a drink for babies, but it's a baby-sized drink.
Yeah, so if you guys are like, this sounds familiar. Well, what we're actually doing is we're recording right after our last episode.
Double record day.
So, in case you guys have been keeping track, this might be more or less my third shot of the night, and I'm going to continue to drink, so have fun. I hope this episode is going to be like a little crazier than the last one. I'm going to be all over the place, I think.
And we're not going a step further until she takes that baby-sized shot.
Oh, all right. Well, let me do that for you.
Yeah, that looked like a little bit of a struggle.
Woo! Just sometimes, like, my mouth refuses to let it go.
Yeah, we your body's telling you something, and maybe you should listen to it.
Never! I'm pouring another one. All right, so this episode, since the last one was more me talking the entire time, I hope you guys were totally entertained, because obviously, this episode, Chase is going to tell us a story. Yeah.
But before we get to the story,
okay.
I do think we need to address the fact that you and me finally saw, after everyone kept telling us about it and saying we need to see it.
Oh, was it?
We finally saw the new Scream movie.
Oh, that's right.
Now, don't worry, because it's so new and fresh and there's plenty of people out there who still want to see it. We are not going to do spoiler discussion or anything like that. I can definitely say it was okay.
Right. Okay, so, you know, obviously we all have our own opinions, and usually what I say, and I can guarantee you if you guys ever stuck around for our movie reviews back in like Halloween and then Christmas again, there's no way we would have agreed on some things. And so take what we say with a grain of salt and just enjoy a horror movie. Just enjoy horror movies, okay? I tried to enjoy this one, and it was a little difficult for me. I'm not going to lie. Like, I think you liked it a little more than I did. For me, it was a bit of a letdown. And again, I don't know if I had a high standard, which, let's face it, I have very low standards for horror movies. And
it has nothing to do with your standards.
I have no standards, actually. Let's just face it. And I was a little like, whatever.
So I thought it was good.
Yeah.
I love the original Scream movie. I think it's great. But I always felt the sequels were a little bit forgettable. I do think I will remember this one more than some of the sequels. But I think the main reason for that is there were some really good kills in this movie.
There were some cool,
unexpected, intriguing, things like that.
You are absolutely 1,000% correct. And here's the thing. I know a lot of people like have given a lot of shit towards the newest Halloween movie. And
which I loved, actually.
Which I actually really liked. Again, it did get a little preachy there in the hospital, and I'm like, whatever. But the kills there, for me, were exquisite. They were, like, pretty well done.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and they were consecutive. Like, they were pretty quickly. Like, I was like, this is a slasher. Like, you know, when you're watching it, you're not kind of derailed. You're, like, constantly being chased. Whereas with Scream, I don't know. I just felt like there was a lot of different, like, lulls that I was like, They tried to make it too serious for me, and I I wasn't on board.
I think I'm going to remember this one because some of the kills are really amazing, whereas there's plenty of Scream sequels. I don't even remember if I've seen them or not.
So I know I've seen them, and you're correct. Some of them are like, I could never see it again. But anyway.
I think everyone should see it. Everyone who likes the Scream movies should definitely give it a shot. We finally got around to it. It took forever for us to see it. I think I would have enjoyed it more in a theater surrounded by people reacting to it and everything. But
100%, yeah.
Now, the next movie we have in our crosshairs is called X.
Yes.
Which is directed by Ty West, the man behind House of the Devil, The Innkeepers, and one of the better VHS segments, which I think was called Second Honeymoon. So this movie X has developed a rather awesome reputation online. Like, people are saying this is a stellar horror film. I really want to see it, and I want to see it in theaters. I'm still not super crazy about going to movie theaters right now. So, I mean, this movie has a 7.3 on IMDb.
Damn, for a horror movie?
Exactly. That's
so
unreal.
Good. That's like Oscar level for us.
Yeah, most horror films are in like the 4.0 to like 5.8 range.
Some of my favorite horror movies are like, anyway, here's a fucking 4.7. And I'm
exactly.
like... It's so good, though.
And, like, super classic horror films, ones where even critics are like, this is going to go down as one of the best horror films ever, usually gets, like, a 6.1.
Right, yeah.
And so a 7.3 is unreal and really has me jazzed.
Yeah.
Almost universally, if a horror movie is praised this highly, we have loved it. Except for The Babadook.
I know. I feel so bad. Like, sometimes I feel like I should rewatch it.
And I was thinking the same thing, because it's been a long time since we've seen it, and maybe we just weren't in the right mindset, because sometimes when we're on horror movie kicks, if we go from one horror movie to a different kind of horror movie,
and that's what we did. We were doing like a marathon of just different shit that we haven't seen that was like on our list. We're like, okay, we're gonna watch this, and this, and we were probably on a more like hyper, like a Scream movie or something like that, similar, where there's like a lot more action stuff going on, and then this one was just like a huge shift in energy, and like, I don't know if we were ready for it.
So I think we need to give it a second try with a different mindset and see if we're like, oh, hey, because I remember when we watched The Witch, I thought it was a genius, and you just weren't about it that day. But then the second time you saw it, you were in a different mindset, and then you really liked it.
This is not even a defense. Like, if anything, I should have liked it more, but I had been drinking quite a bit that day. Like, we were going out, and then we got home, and we're like, let's watch a movie. And usually, to me, that means something really exciting and fun. And then it was The Witch, and I'm like, I was like, damn, this is really like high production, and it's super beautiful in a kind of dark way. And I was like, but I'm also like really getting tired.
I really don't want to watch this right now.
I was like, oops. And then the second time I watched it, I was like, oh, hell yeah, this movie is fucking awesome.
So I feel like the only time we've ever been let down by a highly praised horror movie was The Babadook, which is why I think we need to give it another shot instead of saying we didn't like it, because maybe we don't know yet, so we're going to do it again.
I think you're right.
So maybe we should do that in the next week, so we can... Everyone who thinks it's the best movie ever listened is going, why are we listening to these guys? Get rid of it.
Give us a chance, man. We're going to watch it again. And then you can hate us later if we still hate it.
If we see it a second time, we're like, no, still sucks. Then you can totally never listen to us again
hate
or whatever.
Hate us for a good reason, all right? Give us a second.
But anyway, that's just the movie update.
And so now we're going to go into the story?
So now I think it's time for the story.
Woohoo!
For those of you that have listened to us for the last several weeks, I went pretty gung-ho into paranormal England during the Victorian era.
Yeah, that was your last two, right?
Like three of my last four were that.
Really? Dang.
Yeah.
I did feel like I was transported there for a while, but I kind of liked it, so I wasn't complaining.
But I do think it's time for us to leave it alone for a while, stop kicking the dead horse.
Yeah.
So I think I need to get back to my roots. I think I need to get back to my roots in more ways than one.
Oh, yes.
So it's time for an end of episode encounter.
Woohoo! Oh my God, I'm so excited.
It's not even an end of episode encounter. It's like a whole episode encounter. But
right.
I just had to do my shtick.
I'm so, ready for this. It's been so long. And I remember thinking... I feel like something has changed in our story dynamic, and I realize it's because I purposely try not to learn a lot about this kind of realm because I'm so terrified. And I was like, that's what it was, because I'm no longer forced into fear.
You just have to listen to it when I delve it to you.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't look for this.
But like I said, I had to get back to my roots in more ways than one, because this isn't just a UFO story.
Oh my.
This is a New Mexican UFO story.
Oh no! Okay, those are
505. Pride to the 505.
Yes. Okay.
But actually, 575.
Oh my!
But actually, to clarify, when this occurred, it was area code 505.
It was still 505.
But now it's 575.
Right. Our state got bigger, and we need another whatever.
Another area code. So in 2007. A huge chunk of the state went to 575.
Damn, it was 2007? I feel like it was not that long ago.
Yeah, it was when you and me started dating.
Yikes.
Yeah. So I always wondered if people were bitter about that, who used to be 505 and are now 575.
Unless you had a tattoo, then probably not.
Oh, man, I forgot about all the tattoos. Because there's a lot of 505 pride back then. I don't really hear people saying it anymore, because I think once we got a second area code, it stopped being a thing.
They're like,
But before, our entire state was one area code.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not a big state. Physically big, not population big.
Right, well, we're in the Southwest. Obviously, it's big.
So today, I'm going to talk about the Lonnie Zamora incident.
Okay.
Have you heard of it?
No.
Yeah, so I hadn't either.
Okay.
When it came up, I was like, it kind of sounded a little bit intriguing because it's got such a defining name,
Okay.
but I hadn't heard of it. When it comes to New Mexico, everyone, including me, just thinks of the Roswell incident, don't you?
I mean, that's like the first thing. I mean, even when I used to live in California and was like a child, I would think of Roswell and I'm like, oh yeah, New Mexico.
Well, and it's
the
not
only thing. And like the Phoenix Lights. So I had Phoenix Lights in my head, Roswell incident. And I remember thinking specifically, I will never live in those states. But here we are.
So Roswell is not just the biggest thing in New Mexico. It's one of the biggest alien stories of all time.
Right.
And I am going to cover it on a future episode, I promise. I'm actually going to try to cover it soon.
Ooh.
I've been avoiding it mostly because it's so well known. I don't want an episode just to be where I'm like rehashing information that people already know. So I'm trying to make sure I can do it justice and make it interesting and feel like even if you know the incident that you're still going to get something from it.
Yeah, and I think I agree. Like, I understand. Like, I feel like when I cover some popular topics, I'm like just repeating things that but here's the thing. We're here because we want to just rehear some things. It's a comfort thing. And with the millions of horror stories that are out there, it's nice to get a refresher because sometimes you forget. I forget.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially after all the alien stories I've been covering. It'll be good to bring it back to the OG.
Exactly.
So the Lonnie Zamora incident is apparently a really high-profile incident.
Okay.
So I hope you're as interested as I was.
Yeah.
It all went down on Friday, April 24th, 1964, in Socorro, New Mexico.
Oh, yes. I've been there. Many times.
For those of you hearing the name Socorro for the first time, it's a small city in central New Mexico. In the 1960s, it only had a population of about 5,000 people.
Wow.
So it's very tiny.
Very small, yeah.
And some people claim that this event is one of the reasons it got known. Like, the city even is, like, acknowledged as being a thing.
Oh, okay.
And like an exciting movie, our story opens with a chase.
Ooh.
Officer Lonnie Zamora was in a hot pursuit of a speeding vehicle. The driver, who was unsurprisingly a teenager, had got Zamora's attention from speeding through town. As the police chase continued, the cars sped south out of town and onto dirt roads.
Damn, that would have been rough. Like, the cars. What year was this again? Sorry.
1964.
Yeah, that would have been a rough, bumpy road, right?
It would have been pleasant.
I feel like they probably would have been used to it.
Although the severity of speeding prompted police involvement, it wasn't nearly as important as what was about to happen. Zamora claims he, quote, heard a roar and saw a flame in the sky to the southwest some distance away, possibly a half mile or a mile, end quote. At this point, Zamora ceased pursuit of the speeding vehicle and made investigating the sound a priority. According to later interviews, Zamora believed the noise may have been caused by an explosion in a local dynamite shack.
Okay.
So
the fact that was like a well-known area, I guess that's pretty logical.
Well, I was going to say, I love that nowadays we can't say, oh, I wonder if that was the dynamite shack.
Right.
Because we don't have local dynamite shacks. It's not like, hey,
I
heard an explosion. Oh, that's just Fred's dynamite shack. No.
Yeah.
We don't have those anymore, so that's just kind of shows how it was a very different time.
I feel like I'm very happy about this right now.
As Zamora got closer to the source of the noise, he spotted an object about 200 yards away from him in an arroyo. For those of you unfamiliar with the term arroyo, it's sort of like a wash. It's a large dirt ditch that occasionally carries water. A dry creek, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
To him, the object looked like it might be an overturned vehicle. It was, quote, like aluminum. It was whitish against the mesa background, but not chrome, end quote. He further elaborated that it was a sort of shape like an O. He called the radio dispatch to inform them of a possible accident and that he was going to go to the arroyo to investigate. He requested the assistance of New Mexico State Police Officer Sergeant Samuel Chavez. Zamora approached the object, and once he got within 50 feet of the metallic object, he saw two figures next to it. He described them as, quote, normal in shape, but possibly they were small adults or large kids. End quote.
No, okay, this is so gross. I'm sorry.
It's so funny because if we were like, let's say we're walking in the mall and we see someone, we're like, oh, those are either small adults or large kids, people, like, that's fine. But for some reason, when you see them out in the middle of the desert, you're just something's creepy here.
Not okay. There's no playgrounds here. There's no people here.
He mentioned that they were wearing what appeared to be a form of white overalls, so not threatening to me. It was also at this point that Zamora got a better look at the object. He claims it was round and oval-like, had a door, and he could make out landing gear at the base extending to the ground. Wow. So no longer is a car.
And no longer necessarily a crash, right?
Oh, yeah. If the landing gear is going down, that's usually not how you crash.
Yeah.
He also noted that there was an obvious red symbol on the side. The symbol looked sort of like a lowercase n with an upward arrow inside the curve.
In the middle, then, probably?
Yeah, I'm going to show you a picture.
Okay.
Maybe this picture will be our Instagram thing, so you'll be able to see it.
Aw, okay,
and you can see what the spaceship was supposed to look like. That's a crude
That looks
rendering.
like an egg.
Little bit, right?
It looks like totally like an egg.
Man, April, 26th?
Happy Easter.
Pretty close to Easter, right? But it was a Friday, so it couldn't have been Easter.
It was just the Easter bunny landing on our planet.
Zamora attempted to contact dispatch, but claimed that his radio was only receiving static, and all communication failed. So that's a pretty classic UFO encounter thing. The radio just stops working when you get too close to it.
One of the signs.
Full disclaimer, each of the versions of this story I read were slightly different from each other. Some didn't even mention him trying to contact dispatch and only receiving static.
Okay.
I'm not sure if his approach was in the car or by foot. And if it was by foot, that meant he had to run back to his car, perhaps. I really don't know. So, full disclaimer that I'm dealing with information from multiple sources and trying to
piece it together,
make a cohesive story.
Yeah, no, I trust me, I get it.
So, but after trying the radio, he mentioned that he heard another loud roar. When he looked at the object, the door had closed, and the two figures were presumably inside.
Oh,
Bright blue flames erupted from below the object, and it lifted about 20 feet into the air and moved in a westerly direction at a fast speed.
Weird.
A short while later, Sergeant Chavez, if you remember the guy he requested to come help out,
oh, okay,
arrived on the scene. He described Zamora as being quite concerned and intense. Zamora then brought him to the area that the object had been to examine the scene.
Right.
And what they found were burnt patches of grass and bushes, as well as several deep depressions in the ground.
Oh.
Yeah, right?
Okay,
they actually
so that's
saw stuff.
That's impressive. So, the burn marks I've heard, but deep impressions, that means, there's a sense of weight or a force that pushed as it left. Ooh, no. Okay.
And that's not a typical thing to find.
Not usually. It's not like
in the middle of the desert.
It's not necessarily something a car would leave,
Yeah.
so...
And if it's an arroyo, usually sand there is decently soft because it's kind of like a dried up riverbed. If it has definite weight, it's going to push
pretty deep.
Pretty deep.
Yeah.
Chavez acknowledged that he felt Zamora's account of the incident was credible. So this got reported out there, and then the Army sent out Captain Richard Holder from White Sands Missile Base, which is a nearby military complex very close to the area, to investigate the scene. He verified that there were strange markings and burnt areas on the ground. His conclusion was that the evidence was genuine and not fake.
Ooh, did you say genuine?
Genuine.
I really like that.
A state trooper named Ted Jordan began documenting the evidence with his camera, only to have it confiscated by the Army personnel on the scene.
No.
Right? So, which, as you can guess, has been a point that conspiracy theorists get all hot and bothered over. And
I'm getting hot and bothered over here.
Well, and to be fair, why would the Army confiscate a camera? They weren't on a military base at the time, and as far as I know, it wasn't restricted land that they were on either.
Sure.
So this sighting was investigated by Project Blue Book, an organization I've mentioned several times on previous UFO episodes. Project Blue Book was one of the government's UFO investigation groups whose existence has been declassified. It does exist. This isn't fake. The government has acknowledged it, declassified a lot of their research and everything like that.
Yeah.
The Air Force brought in a consultant for the investigation, a Dr. J. Allen Hynek, a well-known astronomer. Hynek analyzed the physical evidence and concluded it also was credible and not a hoax, which this is all good. Everyone's like, impressive. This is real. This isn't like they didn't have the police officer stomping in impressions with his foot or anything like that.
They're like, there's like 1,000 footprints here.
Yeah, they said everything about the burn marks and everything about the impressions does not look like someone just was trying to make a fake scene.
Or rather, if they did, it would have been pretty impressive because they had to get something very heavy to make such an impression or like whatever.
Absolutely.
And then replicate scorch marks. I mean, how do you do that in such a short time frame, especially since, like you said, he had already called someone out there in a pursuit. So there would have been someone on their way before they could even do anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't have a lot of time on his hands.
Exactly.
Hynek also allegedly interviewed another witness whose name has conveniently never been publicly revealed.
Like the pictures.
Right? This witness claims that they were driving on a road nearby when a similar object flew over their car at speeds in excess of 150 miles an hour. So this guy apparently, after he saw it pulled into a gas station, told the gas station attendant. And,
oh my God.
Yeah, and everything came through and he got interviewed. But his name has not been publicly released at the very least.
Right.
I said least like 3 times there.
Take a shot every time. Oh, which reminds me, I'm just going to take mine real quick.
Yep.
Cheers to everyone out there. To your coffee if it's in the morning. Sorry about that. Woo. Okay, I'm ready.
Other sources claim that as many as 5 tourists in the area also witnessed the object in flight.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, they too have not had their identities revealed. It should also be noted that I couldn't find any sources for this last little tidbit apart from one.
Okay.
And so take the whole thing with a grain of salt. I'd also like to point out, 1960s, how many tourists are you expecting to be in Socorro?
Hey, man, there were a lot of people interested in the Southwest, but I
know when my dad was a kid in the 50s, his family, they went on a road trip. They were up in Wisconsin, down to LA. So they took, the Route 66 and everything like that.
I think it was just like a cool, like a cross country thing. So I'm not necessarily saying Southwest, but since a lot of the population is actually on the East Coast, they would travel down and probably end up in LA. That actually makes sense.
It is going to be a little bit of a shock if you're from the rest of the United States and you come to the Southwest, because we have massive stretches of road in between towns. Like we actually have. You could be driving for 30 minutes and not see a single house easily.
Yeah, like good luck if your car breaks down.
Exactly.
God forbid,
and
but
in the 50s and 60s, that's got to have been a really scary thing because
especially,
you don't have cell phones or anything like that. It could be a huge issue. So I'm just saying I'm so glad that I live in the Southwest now and not in the 50s and 60s when driving around would have sucked.
Yep.
It is also one of the reasons our speed limits are 75 miles an hour here, whereas if you go to the New England area, the speed limits on highways drops. I don't remember at one point we were on the highway and it was 45. And I'm that's ridiculous.
That's not good. I don't even do that on the streets here.
Yeah.
I mean, don't listen, cops. I mean, sorry.
So, why is Zamora's story worth paying attention to? Since he gave his report in official capacity as a police officer, he was aware that this story could affect his reputation. He isn't a random anonymous witness. His name is tied to the report, and his reliability as a cop is on the line. His account was also deemed credible by Sergeant Chavez, another witness whose reputation is also on the line.
Yeah, no, for real.
But there are legitimate criticisms about Zamora as a witness. Unlike previous UFO stories that I have covered, Zamora doesn't have much experience when it comes to aviation. Many reputable sightings are seen by multiple pilots or aeronautical engineers. Their opinions on the size, shape, and trajectory of things moving in the sky holds considerably more credibility. Zamora is a cop, not a pilot. I'm not trying to judge or anything, I'm just saying, but he isn't a pilot. And he's also a cop from a really small town in the 60s. So sure, even if we assume he has the standard familiarity with aircraft as an average American at the time, it still means his opinions on what he saw are coming from a perspective of limited context.
But there's also like an inherent, in my opinion, when it's a cop, even if it's small town, there's like a seriousness to them.
Oh, no, absolutely.
They're like, I'm not just going to say I saw something crazy.
Yeah.
If I didn't see something crazy. I hope, anyway.
Oh, no, absolutely. But the point I was trying to make is, of a small town of 5,000, their aviation sector is not going to be very big.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And so if he's a cop from a small town, it would mean that his exposure to a considerable number of flying vehicles is not going to be very high.
Right, his ability to find out what could have been. Yeah.
I mean, and don't get me wrong, the guy may have actually been obsessed with planes, and I don't know. None of that was ever mentioned.
Right.
But just saying.
Now, was he always talking about this beforehand?
No.
A little bit? Okay, no.
He never talked about this stuff beforehand.
Okay.
And it should also be noted that after this incident, he got very fed up with talking to both the military and the press, and he pretty much just decided never to talk about this.
Oh.
Yeah, and he passed away. I have it written later on. I'll get to that.
Okay, yeah.
But he definitely wasn't trying to make money or be a public figure because of this.
He was like, this is my report. Read my report.
Yeah.
Aw, that makes me sad somehow.
As you can imagine, this story got considerable traction with the media and press. Although it never reached the heights of intrigue that the Roswell crash did, it is still high on the list, and true believers and ufologists consider this a compelling and credible example of a UFO encounter. So is this an actual UFO encounter? Skeptics have posed several alternative theories over the years, and here are the two most interesting ones.
All right.
Number 1. What Zamora saw was an experimental lunar lander vehicle on a test run from the nearby White Sands military base. This would explain the military secrecy, as well as the similarities between the object and an actual lunar lander. What you said is it looked like an egg. Lunar landers that we've seen, our designs have always been kind of round with landing gear coming out the side.
Bottom, yeah.
And the two guys were pilots who were like, okay, we landed. And then when they saw something, like, we got to get the hell out of here.
And maybe, but why, where did it go?
Maybe went back to White Sands missile range. So
I guess so.
I think it's an interesting thing because this would have been the right time. This is the early 60s. It was near a big military base, and this would explain why they were getting rid of the camera and why there was, secrecy to it. So that's a very interesting and compelling thing because we would have been trying to build a lunar lander. I don't know if we would have just launched out into the open or something, but I'm just saying that it's an interesting theory. You usually don't hear theories like that. And then here's theory number 2. Zamora was the victim of a prank concocted by New Mexico Tech students. And New Mexico Tech is a college right near Socorro.
Yeah. Yep.
So the president of New Mexico Tech actually concurred that the sighting was likely the result of students from his school, saying, quote, a candle in a balloon, not sophisticated, end quote.
Really?
Yeah. The president's like, yeah, that sounds like something my stupid students would do.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like that's kind of condescending.
I think it's very condescending.
I don't think that's it. And the impressions. Now, I know there's ways to do this, and I'm sure they could have had a giant plastic egg and then just stomped on it while they're inside it. But that's such an elaborate thing.
Flying away would have been hard to make as a hoax.
And also not leaving any footprints running away of some sorts. Yeah, I don't think that's it.
I mean, I want to believe it's a hoax because I find it really funny. But like you said, the evidence that we got, if it was a hoax, I'm like, man, that's a really impressively elaborate hoax.
It's impressive. It's time consuming. And at the time, it would have been a lot of time and resources. I'm just saying, why would you do this otherwise?
Both of these theories at least acknowledge that Zamora did in fact see something out of the ordinary and not just some gas reflecting off Jupiter or some other nonsense like that.
Jupiter!
So I appreciate that. Now it's time for a possible chase theory. Because if there's one thing I always have...
Oh, there's always a chase theory.
It's an opinion. Perhaps Zamora is actually lying. Let's just say he lost the teenage speedster while in pursuit in his car. And in order to save face, he tried to come up with a story that would make it seem reasonable for him to stop the pursuit instead of it sounding like he failed to catch the teenager.
I mean...
And we all know how lies have a tendency to blow out of proportion until they get so ridiculous. But this would have required him... Yeah, but this would have required him to have rather elegantly placed evidence on the scene that several experts did deem credible.
Okay.
So my theory is likely bunk, but it was just an idea
Your theory's crazy.
The only reason I thought about it is he's chasing a teenager, he hears a crazy noise and sees a UFO. I was like, man, it sounds like he's trying to come up with a reason why he couldn't catch that rascally rabbit.
That is so, I don't know. Like, I see where you're going. I totally see it. But, man, that's a lot of effort. And then evidence to plant. And I don't even know how he would do that in his cop car. And, like, you know what I'm saying? The scorch marks, the egg, or the imprint. How? Tell me how.
No, I know. But all the theories have holes. I just figured that was what I was thinking about when I was reading it the first time.
Okay, well, I like it. I like to think that he had all the stuff in his trunk to mask.
Because, I mean, he could have been already making the evidence when he, like, called in. He said, oh, I got static, but maybe that's because all that time he was doing something like, we haven't heard from you for a while. He's like, oh, yeah, I was just getting static.
There's, like, a plastic bag in his face. And he's like, I can't hear you.
Come send a guy. I got to have him check this out. And he's got a lighter next to a bush.
Maybe.
In the years since the incident, Zamora developed a distaste for talking about it with the military, with the press. He did not want fame from it. He did not want recognition from it.
Fair.
So he pretty much went quiet about it. And he passed away in 2009. At no point did he ever say it was a hoax, but also he was trying to avoid people, so it was never really an issue he brought up.
At the very least, he wasn't trying to make money off of it. It wasn't like this big scheme or whatever in order for him to gain anything. It was just
absolutely
whatever, yeah.
So a few years after the incident, the site of the encounter was made into a mild tourist location with walkways, steps, and benches. However, many claim that this observation site is mislocated and is actually up to a quarter mile from the site of the actual encounter. And there are even rumors that the reason it was built, and this tourist attraction was set up in the 60s.
Okay.
There's rumors that the reason it's not on the exact location is because of radiation, which we know is bullshit.
Right.
But it's just something that has been said.
Okay.
This hasn't been lost and forgotten to Socorro. It is a part of their history that they do actually like.
Okay.
And in 2012, a mural was painted in Socorro to commemorate this UFO encounter and can be seen on a spillway near Park Street. So they got a big old mural there, which I gotta see. So the next time we're driving through Socorro,
I so have to see this.
Because you and me, we gotta go to the VLA again, and so I want to go during, the flowers blooming or something. So we pass through Socorro. We gotta go check out this mural.
I was like, I've been there so many times, and I did not even realize this existed. And
so I think we need to see the mural, but we could also go to this faux tourist location and see where this sighting allegedly occurred. I'm pretty interested in it. So do you believe Zamora's account? Do you think he actually saw all this?
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and say yes. I just feel like it's too ridiculous for someone who didn't even want to talk about it after for it to not be real. Why would you make something up?
Yeah, he didn't just run to the press and tell his story. It was all done officially through his, policing.
People were called in after his backup came, and they're like, oh my God. And in his mind, he's like, this is what I saw. I don't know if it's an alien. I don't even know if he was thinking that. He was like, this is what happened.
So when I asked if you believed him, I meant, did you believe his story, what he thought he saw? Now the question is, do you think it was aliens?
Ah, there it is.
Because those are two different questions to me. Because I actually often believe people who think they see UFOs. I do think they're seeing stuff. I rarely think they're lying.
Right.
What they're seeing is the second question. So the question is, do you think he saw something? And I agree with you. I think he saw something.
Yeah.
But now the extra question is, do you think he saw aliens, or do you think it could have been a military vehicle test, or it could have been students?
I'm more likely to think it's military, and I'm not going to even say it's students because that guy was being a jerk.
Yeah, I think that one's a little bit hard for me to swallow.
Not just that, but I feel like it would have resurfaced at this point and be like, yes, it was a joke, and even take credit because he was so I don't know, he was so condescending and so oh, it was so us, and obviously one of my brilliant students would have done this. And been like, okay, well then fucking take credit. Oh no, you didn't. It's because you didn't do it. I'm over that. And so I think it's military at the very least. And, a part of me likes to stay a little scared and a little on edge. So I'm going to say it's alien.
All right. So I'm not sure if I believe it was aliens. I usually don't.
Yeah.
One thing that I think is important to note is why aliens seem to be obsessed with and landing and crashing in remote areas in the desert.
Yeah.
And because of that, it makes me just think it's probably just military testing because
Yeah.
they're so close to White Sands missile range.
Yeah.
And it just makes sense. I think most UFO sightings tend to actually be military testing that we're keeping under wraps, which makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
This one, I guarantee he saw something.
I do think he saw something.
I just don't know if it was aliens or just two small pilots who fit in their tiny little lunar lander.
He's like, I'm just like little. God, like I'm under 6 feet. I'm sorry. Like, you know, but no, like honestly, he's like, he could have just been slightly shorter than him and be like, they were children. And he's like, I'm like an inch shorter than you. What the hell?
What are you doing there, boy?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the Lonnie Zamora incident as it is today. No one got abducted or killed, and
well,
the experts say this is credible.
I'm glad no one was hurt at the very least. And I do think, yeah, no, this is super interesting. Real quick, before we end the story, I do want to say the fact that there was a loud sound might have been military. Because usually UFOs are like stealth as hell.
Absolutely, I agree.
So, you know, whatever. Anyway,
I mean,
aside from
massive amounts of flame and noise and roar. That sounds like a human vehicle if there ever was one.
It's like, that sounds pretty us here.
Yeah,
you know, we're really loud.
Not James Bond.
Right. Not even close to James Bond.
All right. Now, although this next thing is not horror related, I just have to say that I'm super pumped that the Moon Knight show has finally launched.
Ooh-hoo.
If you don't know anything about Moon Knight, it's a Marvel character, and he's just got a show that is debuting on Disney+. It's not horror related or anything like that. But I've been an avid Moon Knight collector for over 20 years.
Like, literally, if you guys have ever met Chase or even know his existence, you probably already know he's a Moon Knight fan.
So I'm pretty obsessed with it. I even run a website called moonknightfan.com where I document my collection. And I'm not sure what direction the show is going to take and whether or not it's even going to be good because only one episode's come out. But it's definitely got some strange paranormal elements in it right now. So who knows if they're going to go all the way with that. So if you aren't sick of superhero stuff and are looking for something new to try, you know, new show to look for or anything, I'd recommend at least giving the first episode a shot.
You know what I did, and I'm very happy I did. It was such an intense episode, and man, I'm actually excited to see the next one. I've never really said that before.
And by the time this episode comes out, at least the second episode will be out. So I hope
true.
it's good. If the show gets bad after this, I apologize for pushing you down that rabbit hole. But I just feel like I want to push it because it's something that's very important to me, even though it's not necessarily horror related. But I think that brings this episode to a close. Thank you for joining us. And if you have any comments, questions, or scary stories that you would like to share with us, please drop us a line at hotwpodcast@gmail.com. We post episodes every weekend, so cheers to all of you who are drinking along with us tonight. And for those of you who are listening to us who might have had a little too much fun last night, don't worry, because the best cure for a hangover
Is fear.
Bye.
Bye.